Right, man. So today we are chatting a little bit about fear of failure, right?
Yes, sir. So, good one here for you. I'm sure that everybody has probably struggled with this in some respect. I know I have. Um, First thing that comes to mind, though, of like a helpful tip strategy to start overcoming that, because I know most people out there have struggled in some respect where you just don't take the jump at things that you want to, or don't go after your goals and dreams just because you're scared you're going to fail.
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind is number one is accept and understand that fear is going to be inevitable. It's going to be there. I think a lot of us try to avoid it. And in avoiding fear or thinking that we can avoid fear and everything's just going to be smooth sailing, happy go lucky, super seamless in every situation, we set ourselves up for failure immediately through by thinking through that lens. So I think the easy quick fix to help take some stress off your shoulders in those scenarios is go, dude, fear's gonna be there no matter what. And just welcome fear. And just understand that they're gonna be a passenger in your car along your journey. Matter of fact, it's actually required. There's nobody that's gonna walk through and their entire life and not experience fear. It's just we're not designed like that. We're not built like that. Our innate features fundamentally are built to kind of have these alarms go off. Our systems are super smart when there's something that, you know, our ability to raise the hair up on the back of your neck and like your endorphins and your adrenaline and like these things are going to kick in because there are features. It's how we're designed. And so just accept them and go, man, these are actually telling me signals. My body is extremely smart. I don't have to like warn my body that fear is coming. I can just sense it. I can feel it. And I think that's a super cool feature of how our body operates. And so more so embrace the feeling of fear. And have, well, I guess we'll talk about the next portion anyways, but I think that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. What about you? Like what's the first suggestion or piece that comes to mind when you're thinking fear of failure?
Yeah, I mean, what you said is great. Like that's a huge thing where it's understanding that fear is going to be there, but understanding that failure is going to be there, and really to have success, you need to fail,
Yeah.
right? So I think shifting your perspective that it's not failure, but it's like learning, right? It's
Mhm.
like it's almost like with sales, right? Like any sales, you're going to get way more no's than you do yeses, but if you're afraid of getting no's, you're never going to get the yeses,
Yeah.
right? It's like if you made your goal to get like 1,000 no's, like you're gonna get a lot more yeses in the end because you're not afraid at the end of it. Like you've received so much failure in a sense, right? That you're not afraid to do it. So it's like the more you put yourself out there, the more you try things, the more you quote unquote fail, right? You're going to succeed a lot more. You're going to succeed a lot quicker because it's going to become normal, right? It's not going to be failure in your eyes at a certain point. It's going to be like a part of the process, right? It's just like, you know what? Like I have to receive these no's to get more yeses. Or, it's like, just like, hey, this is just another day at the office. Like I expect, like you said, I expected this. I expected to have this happen, or I expected to have a little bit of fear here, and I'm just used to pushing through it. And so it's like changing your perspective. It's more of a learning and growing process as opposed to failure. And then one of my biggest things is just like what I kind of within what I just said there. It's like trying hard things and doing more like uncomfortable things, putting yourself in different scenarios that are not normal to you is only going to make them more normal, and it's going to make that fear kind of dissipate a little bit more as you do it, because it's a part of what you do. It's like I give the example, and I've done this before. For a while I did that getting uncomfortable blog. I talked about this a long time ago, and it was I had like 15 blogs that I did, and it was just like something that I did um, every month, or I don't remember how, like maybe every few weeks that I did it, and I would do something new that was like really uncomfortable to me. Like I did skydiving. I had the thing where every day I would go and I'd have to like create 3 conversations with just random strangers, which was like that was one of the hardest things. But then after a week of doing it every day, it was just so easy. I would go, like it would take me like an hour to do it at the start, where it would be like, like I'm in the grocery store and I'm like trying to think of a good starter conversation for this person, and I'm so scared that they're gonna like shun me or like tell me that I'm an idiot, and then all of a sudden by a week I've done it, a week in I'd done it 20 times, And it was already like, oh, I just went up and I'd go into a store and like within 5 minutes, I'd already like created like three good conversations and I'd leave and go home. Right. So it was just like a super quick process. But that, I think that's one of the easiest ways to get rid of that.
I think the cool part is understanding that we can shift what we deem as normal, right? Like before you go into that, it was not normal to start conversations with strangers. You hadn't done it. And so your body loves the comfortable feeling of, I don't want to do that. Like I'm good not creating those conversations. But then now you create this new target for yourself and you're like, okay, I'm going to go create these uncomfortable conversations with strangers that I don't know. And I start thinking about all the things that could go wrong, right? Like I start thinking about like, this person's going to cuss me out. This person's going to ignore me, right? And that's, again, that's a defense mechanism from our body. It's trying to protect ourselves. It's fearful by nature because it wants to protect us. But the cool thing is you can change what you deem or what you accept as your normal. So then all of a sudden you got more repetitions and then your body was like, oh, this is my new normal now. I just start conversations with random people. And matter of fact, I can do it super easily and I'm not tied to the outcome, whether this person's going to, cuss me out or neglect me or think I'm disrespectful or, you've all of a sudden built this new normal for yourself where you're like, oh, I can do uncomfortable stuff. It's not uncomfortable anymore. Like it might be a little bit, but not where I was waiting an hour before to start my first conversation, like not these fears that I created myself. Because you have some repetitions under your belt. And I think that's the cool thing about building skill is through the magic of repetition, detached from the outcome. So like if you just go have as many conversations as you possibly could, I'm sure you ran into some people that just weren't about it, right? Like we're just like, oh no, super short. Like, and you're like, okay, cool. If you took that to heart and you're just like, oh man, yeah, I was right. That reconfirmed all the fears that I originally had. I must tuck my tail between my legs and go back to not talking to anybody, right? Then you're back in the same scenario, but you just kept going. You detach from the outcome and you're like, oh, well, look, I just got to know right there. I'm one more closer to a yes, or maybe I can make somebody's day, or maybe I can brighten it a little bit. And you start to shift your perspective. Now all of a sudden that becomes your normal. You don't even think twice anymore about, going to have a conversation with a stranger. Whereas before you couldn't even get yourself to have the conversation with somebody because it was so fearful, because you had these hypotheticals and what ifs, and you just relied on your body's natural instincts to be fearful. And that's what we are by default. And so I think you could create, there will be new levels of fear, depending on where you're at, but you kind of, through repetition, you kind of are able to surpass that one and go, okay, yep, my new normal now is I'm not so uncomfortable with having conversations with strangers now. Maybe it is a new fear, right? And maybe you unlocked another one and there's always going to be another level, but maybe you were able to, through repetition, smash that old fear. And now you're just like, oh yeah, I don't even think twice about that one anymore, just because I've done it so many times and I was able to detach from the outcome, which allowed me to get more repetitions in, because I was just focused on the process, regardless of the person said yes, no, was happy, mad, sad, whatever. I was just so focused on, let me hit these. I got to talk to at least 3 people today. And I focused on the process versus what was going to happen when I talked to the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%, dude. Well, that's cool. Good. That's really good. And there's been a lot of research on this too. Like some of the best, and that's one of the things that came up was like shifting from like an outcome goal to a process goal, right? You're not focused anymore on the result. You're focused on the thing that's going to get you to the result. That's a huge one. Maybe we can just go through some of these things that I found and just kind of talk about some of them to finish off here. So first one is, I kind of just touched on this a little bit earlier, but reframing failure as feedback. Huge thing. It's just like it's a learning opportunity. Like if you think of nothing as failure and that every time it's just like, I'm going to take a piece from this thing and I'm going to make it so that I get better the next time, you're going to be a lot better. It's like that shift, that little small mindset shift. And it's just like for somebody, if you're focusing on negative things, it's like just trying to find like a positive thing out of every negative thing that happens to you. Right. I think that's a huge, huge one that we kind of already touched on. So let's go to the next one. Normalize. You talked about this already. Normalize and expect failure. Right. Just expect that it's a part of the process. Expect that it's going to happen. When you already know that it's going to happen, it really just makes it so much easier to go through. Here's another, a lot of these we've talked about, but this one we didn't use visualization. So
Mm,
research has suggested that it's more effective than just positive visualization. So it's like it says, instead of only visualizing success, visualize the obstacles and how you'll overcome them.
mm. That's
What do you
good
think
because
about
now it puts you already in the feelings of what to expect before it's actually physically happened in real life, which is cool because your body, right? They always say like your body and your mind can't tell the difference. Like if you told yourself and you made up something in the past and like you've convinced yourself that it didn't happen, that's how people pass lie detectors, right? Like so much to the point where they're so convinced that they didn't do something. And so they can pass a lie detector, which is insane. Like that's how powerful your mind is. Um, on the other hand, that takes training, that takes repetition. And a cool thing, I think, to build any skill, the awesome thing about it is like it just takes a sheer amount of reps and volume. So if you can take more of those reps, we've done it with sports, with visualization, and like imagining, when I'm standing at home plate, like what the stadium looks like, what the field looks like, what I start to absorb all those things. And then that way, when I step into the box for the first time, I'm like, oh, I've been here. It's familiar. It's normal now. But if I wasn't doing those mental reps in my first exposure to stepping into the box and I'm trying to absorb and take in all this information, I'm like, oh man, this is overwhelming. But that's the cool thing is like you can almost slow down the experience, and speed up the amount of exposure that you have to it just through visualization. Like that's one that we didn't talk about. That's huge. Like
Yeah,
visualization is huge, man.
big time. But
Yeah.
that's a really good one. I actually used to do that. I forgot the context of it, but I used to do like that visualize obstacles and overcoming them, and
Yeah.
it is very very helpful.
It's
Um,
cool because then you approach the obstacle like, oh, dude, I've already handled this, even though it may not have happened in reality, like in physical form yet. But like you've already gone through it, rehearsed it in your head, and it might even be slightly different. But the fact that you've already felt like you've gone through it because you have mentally, dude, you show up to that obstacle or to that problem confident. You're just like, I don't care what's going to happen. Like I've overcome it before already. I could do it again. And that's
yeah,
why I tell people too with their lifts. I'm like, when you're going for a PR and you're going for a lift mentally, you have to tell yourself that you've already been here before. You've already done this. And the likelihood and the percentages of you hitting that lift are way higher than if you have already buried yourself mentally of, oh shit, this is going to be heavy. I haven't done this before. And you start speaking that into existence. Yeah, your percentages drop. But if you
yeah.
go, I could do this. Like this is nothing. Like I've been here before. I've rehearsed it. I visualized it, the chances and likelihood of you doing it and completing it are going to be way higher.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of wrap up a few of these, so challenge your negative thoughts. That's a huge thing. Is this actually true? You could ask yourself. And also another thing it says here: have ever judged someone else for trying? Right,
Mm,
that's a huge thing. No, nobody ever like if you somebody like that tries a bunch of things and like fails and stuff. It's like nobody ever is like, oh wow, that guy. So it's like that's pretty awesome that
yeah.
they're trying different things. Self compassion, right? Just give yourself grace, right? It's a process. A lot of times, I think that we need to be so much farther along in life than we are. Everybody goes about things at a different pace, and things happen the way they're supposed to, right? So just give yourself some compassion along the way. Take action. We talked about that. Doing stuff, failing. If you're afraid of talking to people, talk to more people, right? Get yourself to do it. If you're afraid of speaking in public, maybe get to a Toastmasters class, right? Like try doing that. I did that for a while actually.
Did you?
Where I would do like Toastmasters. I did that for a little while. That's just like it helps. Like all these different things will help you. There's always, if you have a fear, there's something you can do to overcome that fear, like a group or a thing. So, and the last thing is just focus on internal validation. So, you know, am I doing this? Like a question it asks, like how to apply. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I love it or because I want approval? Focus on personal growth over external validation. So
Mm,
focus on yourself, and helping yourself, move forward and grow personally. So that's kind of the wrapping up of everything there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This is there's a lot of good tips in here. I think if I were to just summarize this, like I think some of the biggest things you can really do are to first off expect failure. Expect it's going to happen. It's going to normalize it. It's going to make it a little bit more things, make it easier. Take action on it, right? It's going to be more comfortable if you try things that you're in fear of. It's going to be easier over the course of a very short period of time. It's going to get a lot easier. And then the last one is reframe, right? Just like understand that there's not such thing as failure, but there's just feedback, right? There's no failure, just feedback. Take that as a learning opportunity and grow from it. Thank you guys so much every week. Listen and watch. And so we're dropping these every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. And so make sure you put on your notifications, subscribe, and then just if you could, if you know somebody who could benefit from this podcast or just from the podcast in general, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We appreciate you and hope you have a great rest of the week.